Terrorists from around the world are right now flooding into Nigeria to launch Muhammad's prophesied final global jihad. I'm Mike Arnold. I've made 16 trips to Nigeria, to the front lines of the Christian genocide. I built schools for displaced children there, and I wrote Epicenter, the best-selling book about what's happening. Here's what you must know and what nobody is telling you. When you hear it, you will not be able to look at the situation in Nigeria or global security the same way again. 14 centuries ago, Muhammad prophesied that a descendant of his bloodline, called the Mahdi, would rise at the end of days, ride west under a black banner, defeat the Christian armies in a bloody jihad, and bring the whole earth under one global caliphate. For that to happen, the doctrine says, a purified Islamic platform must be ready, a launch pad. The Islamic world believes they have found it in Nigeria. In 1804, a direct blood descendant of Muhammad, named Usman Dan Fodio, launched a jihad in what is now northern Nigeria. He founded the Sokoto Caliphate explicitly as the launch pad for the coming of the Mahdi. He killed as many as 250,000 and displaced millions to establish the largest pre-colonial empire in Africa, bigger population than Pharaoh's Egypt, using the exact same tactics we see today: massacre, beheading, destruction, rape, displacement, and slavery, all while shouting Allahu Akbar. Usman Dan Fodio wrote more than 100 books. In them he positioned himself as the Mujaddid, the renewer of his Islamic century, whose mission was to prepare the way for the coming of the Mahdi. He believed the Mahdi would appear in the caliphate he founded while his descendants sat on the throne. In other words, he saw himself as, effectively, the Islamic John the Baptist, making the way for their jihad messiah. At its peak, Dan Fodio's Sokoto Caliphate held as many as 2.5 million slaves. The British never conquered the caliphate. They cut a deal. Indirect rule, they called it, and let the caliphate stay in power as their enforcers. The Mahdi's launch pad survived. Muhammad's bloodline kept the throne. The British forcibly chained the vibrant, largely Christian, English-speaking South to this dark, feudal caliphate. Before they granted independence in 1960, the British federalized the vast oil reserves of the South, gave full control of the new federal government to the north, and cut a sweetheart deal to keep looting the nation's black gold. In 1967, a portion of the southeast, known as Biafra, at the time the fastest-growing economic region on earth, sought independence from the caliphate's genocidal grip. In response, the northern warlords enforced a total blockade, declaring starvation a legitimate tool of war. They even shot down Red Cross aid planes. With Britain's full backing, in 30 months they starved to death some 3 million Biafrans, mainly children. The survivors were subdued, their wealth confiscated, a generation buried in mass graves, the history erased. Welcome to Nigeria, a so-called secular democracy, where today's constitution was written by an Islamic dictator and mentions Sharia law and other Islamic terms 165 times. Christianity, 0. Sitting on that caliphate throne today is Sultan Sa'ad Abubakar III, the 20th hereditary heir of Dan Fodio, and the spiritual head of West Africa's 108 million Muslims. One bloodline, Muhammad to Dan Fodio to today's Sultan. 1,400 years of prophecy, waiting. Today, Islamic fundamentalists around the world believe the moment has come. The Islamic State has declared Africa their divinely empowered land. The majority of global ISIS propaganda now comes out of Nigeria. Foreign fighters from the Middle East, North Africa, the Sahel, even Europe, are streaming in as religious pilgrims, not immigrants. They believe this is where Allah has called them to die for the fulfillment of Muhammad's prophecy. Sheikh Zakzaki is founder of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, an Iran proxy with 3 million members across Nigeria. His organization has an armed wing, documented weapons caches, and a history of mass mobilization. In February 2026, speaking in Nigeria's capital of Abuja, he declared, quote, "We are not merely waiting for the reappearance of the Imam Mahdi, so that we may follow him afterwards. We are his followers today. He is our global leader, and the affairs of the Ummah, that's the global Muslim community, are already under his guidance. He also said, readiness before the reappearance is one of the central missions of the followers of the Imam Mahdi. Leading Islamic nations are actively helping build the Mahdi's launchpad in Nigeria today. Turkey just signed a major deal with President Bola Tinubu to train Nigerian troops using a group whose stated mission is to, quote, pave the way for the long-awaited Mahdi by helping the Islamic world achieve military superpower status. Iran, whose entire regime exists to hasten the Mahdi, has helped build Zakzaki's massive Islamic movement in Nigeria. Saudi Arabia spent decades building the doctrinal pipeline that birthed Boko Haram, and Qatar is the banker. The movement's toll is staggering. Since the founding of the caliphate, the start of this jihad, as many as 6 million Nigerians dead, 10 million enslaved, 25 million displaced. Since 2009 alone, 125,000 Christians slaughtered, along with 60,000 peaceful Muslims who refuse to join the jihad, according to Nigeria's human rights group Intersociety. More than 20,000 churches destroyed. Today, 80% of all Christians killed worldwide for their faith are killed in Nigeria, most by jihadis from the same tribe, same caliphate, same prophecy, using the exact same tactics Dan Fodio used 222 years ago. Allahu Akbar. This is the longest running and longest active genocide on earth, a hidden Holocaust. Today in Nigeria, college girls are burned to death for praising Jesus on WhatsApp, and nobody is punished. Farmers are sentenced to death for defending themselves against terrorists. The Chinese are looting vast amounts of blood minerals and funding the jihad groups to clear the land, bribing the military and political leaders to look the other way. A prisoner of conscience named Nnamdi Kanu is serving a life sentence in Sokoto prison for truth spoken in England, illegally abducted from another country, and convicted under a law no longer on the books. Youth are executed in the street by federal police. Influencers who speak the truth are taken, tortured, and disappear. Thousands of men, women, and children are abducted, held in what can only be called concentration camps, many tortured and killed, in sophisticated kidnapping schemes pioneered by Boko Haram. Nigeria's 50 million school children are today being forcibly indoctrinated by the government. The man in control of the nation's curriculum, from preschool through college, is the world's leading expert on the Islamization of knowledge, and he considers it an intellectual jihad. As many as 10 to 12 million peaceful and productive Nigerians have been forced from their ancestral lands, living and dying in the most horrible conditions imaginable, denied recognition and aid by the government. Without intervention, it is expected that as many as 50% will be radicalized in the next few years. That's 5 to 6 million more jihadis. At the same time, the government gives captured terrorists room, board, and free classes, then releases them back to the community, rehabilitated. Many are even given government jobs. Statistics show most are likely to go right back to killing. On May 16th, President Trump killed the world's #2 ISIS commander in a strike on his compound in Nigeria. Nigeria's government had given this terrorist cover officially by declaring him dead 2 years ago. But strikes alone will not stop what the jihadis believe is the fulfillment of a 1,400-year-old prophecy. The caliphate has a 222-year head start. They are hijacking the nation's inevitable rise, on track to become the third most populous nation on earth by 2050, a top 5 oil producer with $1 trillion in mineral reserves, making more movies than Hollywood and dominating the streaming charts. They see Nigeria today as the greatest platform in history for the Mahdi to finally come and conquer the world. President Trump, you must act now. You have rightly called radical Islamic jihad the greatest threat to our national security. Nigeria is the epicenter. You must know that working with the Nigerian government to end this genocide is like working with the Third Reich to end the Holocaust. You cannot stop this with sanctions. Jihadis are prepared to die for their cause. And China is more than happy to backfill any economic loss we impose on Tinubu's regime. Nigerian officials are today disarming and prosecuting defenders while arming the terrorists. They are rewarding captured terrorists while smothering millions of innocent displaced victims. They are violently suppressing truth speakers and spending millions to propagate lies in Washington. Top Tinubu administration officials have recently called the killers brothers and prodigal sons who deserve to be rehabilitated. The radicals have fully hijacked the school system with the philosophy of Boko Haram. As you have found in Iran, you cannot simply negotiate or partner with people who believe Allah has called them to fulfill a 1400-year-old prophecy, and that is exactly what you are facing in Nigeria. But I believe you can flip Nigeria without a war. The people of Nigeria are incredible. They have unlimited potential. They rise to the top wherever they go in the world. Give them the chance to do that at home, and they will build an amazing nation, a real Wakanda, and America's greatest ally in Africa, a lighthouse of freedom in a dark part of the world. Just watch. President Tinubu is guilty of genocide today for his denial of recognition and aid to the displaced citizens. Indict him, arrest him. The Sokoto Caliphate must be investigated as a terrorist sponsor and dealt with accordingly. 2 centuries of history and overwhelming evidence demand it. Keep striking the terrorists, and you must know the Fulani militia are killing most of the Christians today, not ISIS. Hit them too. Take them all out. Conduct a full census of the displaced. Interview them. They are eyewitnesses to genocide, and help coordinate the international aid they desperately need. Finally, ensure a free and fair referendum for a new constitution written by and for the people. Allow them to determine their own boundaries and watch them rise. Islamic jihadists today are finally recognized as the greatest threat to global security. Today, the Sokoto Caliphate in Nigeria is the only throne in the world that meets the classical Sunni requirements for a legitimate caliphate. And it was built explicitly to be the platform for the prophesied Mahdi, the launch pad for the final jihad to conquer the world. This is the epicenter. If we do not fight this fight in Nigeria today, we will fight it